Hello guys, it's me Simo Urahara, and in this video I will talk about one of the biggest mysteries that remain stuck in the story of Bleach, and that Kobe did not mention in the final arc, which is the background of the Sternritters, and I mean here their past and their real ages, and some details of their lives, whether before they joined the Wanderreich or after they joined it and lived among its walls. Because there is no doubt that any character you write about, in order to give it a dramatic and narrative depth, it would be good to present some of its past at certain stage of the story, and that past that may explain later the behavior of that character and how it developed from a point A to point B, and thus this makes the character as a whole has a weight in the story. And this is what we saw with most of the Shinigami. Almost every captain we saw a part of his background, and the same thing with the Espada. Stark we saw his past, Baragan, Ilikura, Grimijo, Halibel, and even some other Arankaras like Neil. Even the Fullbring characters Kobo have dedicated one chapter to their past. But when the final arc started and Kobo started revealing the new enemies, they turned out to be Quincy's, and here the mystery began to form. Why? Because it was mentioned that there was a war between the Shinigami and the Quincy's 1,000 years ago, and we all know that the Quincy's are originally human beings, and their age cannot exceed the human age by a large number. And I mean, let's say for example that their age may reach 200 years, but we cannot imagine that their age may exceed 500 years or 1,000 years. That's what we know. So why did Busby and Hashveld live more than 1,000 years? It was confirmed in their flashback that they were born before the beginning of the first war between the Shinigami and the Quincy's, at the time when Urahara was preparing to go to the Soul Society and invade it. So we have clear evidence that they were born 1,000 years ago. As for the question of whether they participated in the war or not, we don't know anything about it. And not just them, it is possible that some of the other characters who appeared in the final arc participated in that war, like Asuke Naklovar. In this scene he seemed to speak as if he had participated in that war, and when they were defeated he hid inside the shadows with the rest of the survivors, and he remained hidden there for 1,000 years. So this question has been posing itself since Kobo mentioned the war of 1,000 years ago, and it's clear that all the Sternritter we saw in the final arc are not from one time period. For example, Busby and Hashveld are Quincy's from 1,000 years ago, while Bambita and the rest of the girls, except that Giselle is a boy, are among the new Sternritter who have joined the Wanderreich recently, and this is what Robert said in this scene. On this basis, I think we may find Sternritter who joined the Wanderreich maybe 800 years ago, 500 years ago, or even 200 years ago, or Sternritter born in the current century and joined the Wanderreich like not. This latter is the only Sternritter other than Busby and Hashveld whom Kobo drew some pages about his past. We saw him in the hospital as if he was suffering from a terminal illness. That's why I said that the issue of the ages of the Sternritter remains a mystery, especially since we know that they are, first and foremost, human beings. And I personally think that the secret of all of this is inside the shadows in which the survivors of the first war hid. In a way or another, it preserved their ages so that they did not grow old. And maybe that the big reason why the first invasion was so quickly, it's because they had a limited time to destroy the Soul Society. I don't know how long it was the first invasion, but when Ichigo came and fought Urahara, this latter wanted to finish him and take him with him to the Wanderreich. But the shadows appeared, and there Hashveld spoke important words. He said that their time outside the shadows had reached its limits and they had to return to the Wanderreich. And this may indicate that some of the Sternritter may have their lives linked to the shadows, especially those who lived 1,000 years ago, meaning that if they live it for a long time, they may die or grow old quickly. And this may explain why the second invasion was within the walls of the Wanderreich, inside the hidden kingdom of the Quincy's. For all of this, it became clear to you how important to write a flashback for some Sternritter in order to understand many things, including in what period of time some Sternritter lived in. For example, the background of the Elite Guard's members. We know that Lily Barrow is the leader of the Elite Guard, and he is the first Sternritter who got a Schrift. So when was that? Is it 1000 years ago or after? The same thing can be said about Pernida, which represents the Soul King's left hand. Also Gerard, how Urahara gave him the heart of the Soul King, and when did that happen? As for Asken, I personally want to see a flashback about him. I am currently writing a fanfiction about his past, and when I finish it, I will make it in the form of a video in the upcoming days. Of course, I'm not saying that Kobo should make a flashback for each generator, but at least should have done it with some of them like the ones I mentioned now. That's why I think that there are some solutions to fix this, whether by entrusting the anime with this matter as they did with Halibel. Halibel's past did not appear in the manga, but the anime showed it in one of the episodes. Or Kobo can make a new data book where he can release all the information we need about the Quincy's, and he did this before with Elikura. Elikura was among the few Espada whose past was not written by Kobo in the manga, but later in this data book Kobo made a special chapter about Elikura's past. So who knows, a new data book might have a flashback about one of the Sternritters. Frankly, I would like to see the flashback of Asken because he is the most distinguished character among the Quincy's. Kobo focused on him greatly in several major events. That's why I honestly want to see his past and how he got his ability to death dealing. But if you want to talk about the characters whose past will benefit the story greatly, there is Gerard and Pernida, especially Pernida, because it represents the Soul King's left hand. I imagine at what time this hand separated from Ryu, and how this was done, and also where it was when it came down from the Royal Palace, and at what time it met Urahara. Other than this, Kobo said in one of the volumes, and I think volume 73, that the top 4 Quincy's are designed according to different war periods. And I think he meant Gerard, Hajveld and Lilibaro, as well as Asken. For example, Gerard is the one who applies to him the period of medieval, and Hajveld from the Middle Ages because of the sword he owned, and Lilibaro from the periods of the First and Second World Wars. The funny thing is that I'm talking about the need of a flashback for some Sternritter who have done something in the final arc. But on the other hand, there are a lot of Sternritter who didn't even have a screen time to show themselves, like Chaz Domino, Robert and Nanana. So I don't know how Kobo gonna deal with all of this mess. You guys tell me, what do you think? Do we really need some flashback for some Sternritter, or it's good to keep them like that? Tell me in the comments guys, and see you in my next video.